Hello family, enjoy this relaxing moment with Charm Stories. Remember to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comment section. Also generously hit the like button cause it means the world to us. Please sit back, relax and enjoy as we dive into the story. Victor Kane sat in his grand study, surrounded by walls lined with leather-bound books and antique artifacts collected from around the world. The room exuded power and wealth, much like the man himself. Though confined to a wheelchair, Victor was far from helpless. His sharp mind had built a vast empire, and even now, every decision he made reverberated across industries. His new wife, Vanessa, stood by the window, her silhouette framed by the evening light. She was stunning, with her flowing dark hair and elegant features. To the world, she was the picture of devotion, a woman who had swept into Victor's life with a whirlwind romance that ended in a lavish wedding. But lately, something about her behavior had started to unsettle him. "Victor," Vanessa said, turning to face him, a charming smile on her lips. "You've been working all day. Don't you think it's time to take a break?" Victor glanced up from the documents on his desk, his piercing eyes studying her. "Work keeps me alive, Vanessa. You know that." Vanessa walked over, her heels clicking softly on the polished floor. She placed a delicate hand on his shoulder. "Of course, darling. I just worry about you sometimes." Victor gave her a small smile but didn't respond. His instincts, honed by decades of navigating the cutthroat world of business, were telling him something was off. Vanessa had always seemed so supportive, so interested in his life and work. But in the weeks following their wedding, her interest had turned unusually specific. Later that evening, as they sat in the dining room over an exquisite meal prepared by the house chef, Vanessa broached a subject that made Victor's internal alarms ring. "Victor," she began, swirling her wine glass thoughtfully, "I've been thinking about something." "What's that?" Victor asked, his tone casual, though his attention was razor-sharp. "Well, now that we're married, I feel like I should know more about your affairs," Vanessa said, her voice sweet and innocent. "Not that I want to interfere, of course. But I'd like to be involved, to understand how everything works." Victor raised an eyebrow, setting his fork down. "My affairs? You mean my businesses?" "Yes," Vanessa said quickly, flashing a bright smile. "And your financial portfolio, the estate, everything. I want to be your partner in every sense of the word." Victor leaned back in his wheelchair, his fingers steepled. "That's very thoughtful of you, Vanessa. But those matters are already handled by my team of experts. There's really nothing for you to worry about." "But I'm your wife now," Vanessa pressed gently. "Shouldn't I be informed? What if something were to happen to you?" Victor's eyes narrowed slightly. "Something like what?" "Oh, don't be morbid," Vanessa said with a light laugh, waving her hand. "I just mean, accidents happen. It's practical to be prepared, isn't it?" Victor's expression remained unreadable. "You're right, Vanessa. Preparation is important. That's why I've ensured everything is already taken care of. If anything were to happen to me, my will dictates exactly how my assets will be managed." Vanessa's smile faltered for a split second before she recovered. "That's good to hear. But wouldn't it make sense for me to know the details? After all, I'd be responsible for so much." That night, as Victor wheeled himself into his private bedroom, his mind replayed the conversation. Vanessa's sudden interest in his will and financial portfolio didn't sit well with him. She had never expressed such curiosity before the wedding. Why now? He reached for his phone and dialed his most trusted confidant, Richard, his personal attorney and friend of over 20 years. "Richard," Victor said once the call connected, "I need you to review my will and ensure that it's airtight." "Of course, Victor," Richard replied, his tone serious. "Is there something specific I should be looking for?" Victor hesitated for a moment. "Just make sure there are no loopholes. And I want you to keep this between us. Don't mention it to anyone, especially not Vanessa." "Understood," Richard said. "I'll get on it first thing in the morning." As Victor ended the call, he couldn't shake the feeling that Vanessa was playing a long game. He had built his empire by trusting his instincts, and those instincts were now screaming that something wasn't right. The following afternoon, Victor was in his study when Vanessa entered, carrying a tray with tea and biscuits. Her smile was warm, but Victor noticed the way her eyes flickered to the documents on his desk. "I thought you might like a little break," Vanessa said, setting the tray down. "You work so hard." "Thank you, Vanessa," Victor said, keeping his tone neutral. "I appreciate it." As she poured the tea, Vanessa glanced at the papers in front of him. "What are you working on today?" "Just routine business matters," Victor replied smoothly, sliding the papers into a folder. "Nothing exciting." Vanessa sat across from him, her expression curious. "You're so secretive sometimes, Victor. Don't you trust me?" Victor's lips curved into a faint smile. "Trust is earned, Vanessa. You've been wonderful, but certain matters require a level of confidentiality." Vanessa's eyes darkened for a moment before she laughed lightly. "I suppose I can't argue with that. But I hope I'll earn that trust soon." Victor nodded but said nothing. As Vanessa left the room, he couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that her charm was carefully calculated. That evening, as Victor prepared for bed, he made another call, this time to his head of security. "Marcus," Victor said, his voice low, "I want you to keep an eye on Vanessa. Discreetly. I need to know if she's making any unusual inquiries or contacts." "Understood, sir," Marcus replied. "I'll handle it personally." Victor ended the call and stared out the window at the city lights. He wanted to believe in Vanessa's sincerity, but his instincts told him to prepare for the worst. "Let's see what game you're playing, Vanessa," he murmured to himself. "You won't fool me." Vanessa sat in the dimly lit corner of a chic rooftop bar, a glass of wine in hand. Across from her was Darian, a ruggedly handsome man with a sly grin. He leaned in closer, his voice low. "So, what's the next step?" Darian asked, his eyes gleaming with intrigue. Vanessa smirked, swirling her wine lazily. "Victor's not as sharp as everyone thinks. He's still so blinded by his affection for me that he doesn't see what's coming." Darian raised an eyebrow. "And you're sure this will work? I mean, the guy is no fool. He didn't build an empire by being naive." Voice sharp. She glanced around to make sure no one was listening before lowering her voice. "That's why we need to act fast. If I don't get him out of the way soon, I could walk away with nothing." Darian leaned forward, his tone serious. "You're sure you can handle this? Victor's not someone to mess with." Vanessa's eyes flashed with determination. "I've got it under control. You just focus on being ready when the time comes." In Victor's sprawling mansion, Maria, his trusted assistant of over a decade, moved through the halls carrying a stack of documents. She knew every corner of the house and had become a silent observer of the dynamics between Victor and Vanessa. Something about Vanessa had always struck her as off, but she had kept her suspicions to herself, until now. As she passed by the study, she heard Vanessa's voice. Pausing just out of sight, Maria realized Vanessa was on the phone. She leaned in, careful not to make a sound. "Darian, listen to me," Vanessa was saying, her tone frustrated. "Victor has already spoken to his lawyer. If we don't act quickly, this entire plan could fall apart." Maria's heart raced as she pieced together what Vanessa was saying. "I don't care how careful we have to be," Vanessa continued. "I didn't marry that old man to walk away with crumbs. Just stick to the plan, and we'll be swimming in money before you know it." Maria stepped back, her hands trembling slightly. She didn't need to hear any more. Vanessa was plotting something against Victor, and Maria knew she had to act quickly. That evening, Maria entered Victor's study, where he was reviewing documents in his wheelchair. She closed the door behind her, her expression tense. "Maria," Victor said, looking up. "You look like you've seen a ghost. What's wrong?" "Mr. Kane," Maria began hesitantly, "there's something you need to know. It's about Vanessa." Victor set down his pen, his sharp eyes fixed on her. "Go on." Maria took a deep breath. "I overheard her on the phone. She's planning something with someone named Darian. She mentioned your will and said they need to act quickly. I think she's plotting to take everything from you." Victor was silent for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then he nodded slowly. "Thank you for telling me, Maria. I had my suspicions." "You knew?" Maria asked, surprised. "I've been in business for decades," Victor said calmly. "You don't get to where I am without learning to spot when someone is playing a game." Vanessa's behavior after the wedding was a red flag. Maria hesitated before speaking again. "What do you want to do? Should we confront her? Call the authorities?" Victor shook his head. "No, not yet. If we act too soon, she'll deny everything, and we won't have proof. I need to let this play out." "Play out?" Maria asked, alarmed. "That's dangerous, Mr. Kane." Victor gave her a faint smile. "Maria, I'm not defenseless. I want you to help me gather evidence. Record anything suspicious, track her calls if you can, and keep a close eye on her movements. If she wants to play games, we'll make sure she loses." Maria nodded, her respect for Victor growing. "I'll do whatever it takes." Victor leaned back in his wheelchair, his mind already strategizing. Let her think she's in control. The bigger the trap, the harder she'll fall. Later that night, Vanessa entered the study, finding Victor engrossed in his papers. She approached him with her usual charming smile. "Victor, you're working so late again," she said softly. "You need to take care of yourself." Victor looked up, his face warm but neutral. "I appreciate your concern, Vanessa. I'm just finalizing a few things." She leaned over his shoulder, her eyes scanning the papers on the desk. "Is that about your will? I thought you had already taken care of that." Victor's expression didn't waver. "Just a few adjustments. Nothing for you to worry about." Vanessa's smile tightened. "Of course. I just want to make sure everything is in order. You know how much I care about you." Victor placed a hand over hers, his touch gentle but firm. "I know, Vanessa. And I care about making sure you're provided for, no matter what happens." Vanessa's eyes flickered with something unreadable, but she quickly masked it with a sweet smile. "You're too kind, Victor." As she left the room, Victor watched her go, his mind racing. He had no doubt that Vanessa was plotting against him, but he also knew she underestimated him. He was determined to gather all the evidence he needed before taking action. Over the next few days, Victor quietly put his plan into motion. With Maria's help, he installed discreet cameras and recording devices in key areas of the house. Marcus, his head of security, was brought into the fold to monitor Vanessa's activities and track her calls. Maria reported back daily, detailing Vanessa's suspicious behavior. "She's been making a lot of calls to this Darian," Maria said one afternoon. "And she's been asking more questions about your assets." Victor nodded, his expression calm but focused. "Let her keep asking. The more she talks, the more evidence we'll have." Vanessa, unaware of Victor's growing awareness, continued her plans with Darian. She believed she was in control, that Victor was blind to her schemes. But Victor was always one step ahead, quietly gathering the proof he needed. As the tension in the house grew, Victor's resolve hardened. He knew that Vanessa's game would soon come to an end, and when it did, he would ensure she faced the full consequences of her actions. Victor Kane sat in the conference room of a private office late one evening. Around the table were his most trusted allies, Richard, his sharp legal advisor, Marcus, his head of security, and Elijah, a discreet stunt specialist who had been brought in for an unusual request. Victor's wheelchair was positioned at the head of the table, his expression calm but serious. "Gentlemen," he began, his voice measured, "I've brought you here because I need your help. This is a matter of life and death, or at least it needs to appear that way." Richard leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "Victor, you're saying you want to fake your death? That's a serious move. What's going on?" Victor met his gaze. "My wife, Vanessa, is plotting against me. She's working with an accomplice to get rid of me and inherit my fortune. I've spent weeks gathering evidence, but I need something more, something that will push her to reveal her true motives." "And you think faking your death will do that?" Marcus asked, his voice skeptical but intrigued. Victor nodded. "Vanessa will believe her plan has succeeded. When she thinks I'm gone, she'll make her next move. That's when we'll catch her red-handed. Elijah, the stunt specialist, leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. Faking a death isn't easy, especially for someone as high-profile as you. But it can be done. What's the scenario? Victor tapped his fingers on the table. She's planning a romantic getaway, likely to set up her scheme. I want to turn it into a staged accident, something believable but controlled. Richard adjusted his glasses. Legally, this is a gray area, Victor. But if it means exposing a crime, I'll make sure everything is airtight. We'll need detailed documentation of her actions and motivations to protect you when this comes to light. Marcus spoke next. We'll install trackers on Vanessa and place hidden cameras in strategic locations. That way, we can monitor everything she does in real time. Victor smiled faintly, his confidence unwavering. Perfect. Let's make this happen. The following day, Maria discreetly delivered a small tracking device to Victor, which he handed off to Marcus. Place this in Vanessa's favorite bracelet, Marcus instructed a technician. She wears it everywhere. Meanwhile, hidden cameras were installed in Victor's study, bedroom, and other key locations in the house. Victor's team carefully documented Vanessa's phone calls, tracking her conversations with Darian. She's still pushing him, Maria reported to Victor one morning. She's pressing for them to seal the deal during this getaway. Victor smirked. Good. Let her believe she's in control. A few days later, Vanessa appeared in Victor's study with a radiant smile. She placed her hands on his shoulders and leaned down to kiss his cheek. Victor, darling, she cooed, I've been thinking. We've both been so busy lately. Don't you think we deserve a little time away? Just the two of us. Victor tilted his head, studying her with a faint smile. Time away? Where were you thinking? There's a lovely little retreat I've been wanting to visit, Vanessa said, her tone light. It's by a beautiful bridge overlooking a river. Peaceful, romantic, and private. You've been working so hard. You deserve to relax. Victor pretended to hesitate. I don't know, Vanessa. There's so much to do. Vanessa pouted slightly, her voice softening. Please, Victor. For me. It's just a couple of days. I want us to spend quality time together. Victor feigned a thoughtful expression before nodding. All right, Vanessa. If it makes you happy. Vanessa beamed. It'll be perfect, I promise. Behind her charming smile, Vanessa's mind was racing. The bridge would be the perfect spot. A tragic accident could be staged, something that would seem like an unfortunate fall. Darian had already agreed to be nearby, ready to help her execute the plan. Later that night, Vanessa called Darian from her room. It's happening, she whispered. We're going to the bridge in 2 days. Make sure everything's ready. On the other end of the line, Darian chuckled. You're a master at this, Vanessa. Just make sure he doesn't suspect anything. He won't, Vanessa replied confidently. Victor's too focused on his work to see what's coming. What Vanessa didn't know was that every word was being recorded by Victor's team. In another room, Marcus listened through headphones, his face grim. He sent a text to Victor. She's ready to make her move. The day of the trip arrived, and Vanessa was practically glowing as she helped Victor into their luxury car. The scenic drive to the retreat was filled with casual conversation, though Victor remained observant of her every word and action. When they arrived, the retreat was as picturesque as Vanessa had described. Rolling hills, a serene river, and the iconic bridge in the distance. Vanessa was all smiles as she pushed Victor's wheelchair along the cobblestone paths. Isn't this beautiful? She said, her tone warm and affectionate. It's exactly what we needed. Victor nodded, playing along. It's lovely, Vanessa. You always have an eye for these things. As they approached the bridge, Vanessa slowed her pace, her expression growing serious. Victor, she said softly, thank you for coming here with me. I just want you to know how much you mean to me. Victor smiled faintly. That's kind of you to say, Vanessa. She leaned down, her face inches from his. You've given me so much, Victor. I just want to give you the life you deserve. Victor's eyes glinted, though his tone remained neutral. And I trust you'll make sure of that. Vanessa straightened up, her grip tightening on the wheelchair handles. Her heart raced with anticipation, but she kept her composure. Everything was falling into place, or so she thought. As Vanessa wheeled him closer to the bridge, Victor's mind was calm and focused. He knew this was the moment she had been planning for, and his team was already in position. Hidden cameras placed near the bridge would capture every detail, and Elijah, the stunt specialist, was waiting in the shadows to play his part in the staged accident. Victor glanced up at Vanessa, his voice calm. "This is quite the view, isn't it?" Vanessa nodded, her smile fixed. "It really is, Victor. The perfect place for a fresh start." Victor's lips curved into a subtle smirk. "Indeed." The night was cool and quiet, the sound of the river below the bridge blending with the gentle rustle of leaves in the wind. The moon cast a soft glow over the scenic retreat, creating an almost serene atmosphere. But beneath the calm exterior, a storm was brewing. Vanessa stood near the edge of the bridge, her elegant coat flowing in the breeze. She checked her phone, where a single message from Darian read, "In position." Her heart raced with anticipation. Tonight was the night everything would fall into place. Victor sat in his wheelchair, a few feet behind her, appearing calm and unbothered. His sharp eyes took in the scene, but he said nothing, waiting for Vanessa to make her move. Inside, he felt a strange mixture of anger and grim satisfaction. He knew what was coming. Vanessa turned back to Victor, her smile soft and inviting. "Victor, come closer. You have to see how beautiful the view is from here." Victor tilted his head, his voice steady. "I can see it well enough from here." She walked toward him, her heels clicking softly on the wooden planks of the bridge. "Please, darling," she said sweetly. "This is a moment we'll never forget. Trust me." Victor allowed a faint smile to cross his lips. "I'm sure we won't." She reached behind his wheelchair and began to push him toward the edge of the bridge, her movements smooth and calculated. As they approached the railing, Vanessa's pulse quickened. This was it, the culmination of her carefully laid plan. Stopping at the edge, she leaned down and placed her hands gently on Victor's shoulders. "You've given me so much, Victor," she said, her voice almost trembling with faux emotion. "I don't know how to thank you." Victor looked out over the water, his expression unreadable. "You don't need to thank me, Vanessa. I just hope you know what you're doing." Her smile faltered for a fraction of a second, but she quickly recovered. "I do. I really do." Darian appeared from the shadows, stepping onto the bridge. His dark coat made him nearly invisible against the night. Vanessa's hand tightened slightly on Victor's shoulder as she glanced at Darian, giving him a subtle nod. "Victor," she said softly, "sometimes the hardest decisions are the ones we have to make for the greater good." Victor turned his head slightly, his voice calm but cold. "I couldn't agree more." Before he could say another word, Vanessa's hands moved swiftly. With a calculated push, she sent Victor's wheelchair careening toward the edge of the bridge. Time seemed to slow as the wheelchair tipped forward, and Victor disappeared over the railing. The splash below echoed loudly in the still night, ripples spreading across the dark water. Vanessa stood frozen for a moment, her chest heaving as adrenaline coursed through her veins. She turned to Darian, who was watching the river with a mixture of shock and grim satisfaction. "It's done," Vanessa said, her voice shaking slightly. Darian nodded, stepping closer to her. "You sure no one saw us?" Vanessa straightened, her confidence returning. "There's no one here. It's perfect. In a few days, we'll make it look like an accident." Darian smirked, placing a hand on her arm. "You're incredible, Vanessa. Now we just need to stay calm and let things play out." She smiled back, her eyes gleaming with triumph. "He's gone, Darian. We did it." Under the bridge, Victor's wheelchair landed on a specially constructed platform hidden beneath the structure. The setup, designed by Elijah and his team, absorbed the impact and left Victor unharmed. Two members of Victor's team emerged from the shadows, quickly unfastening him from the chair. "You okay, sir?" Marcus asked, his voice low. Victor nodded, his expression calm but resolute. "I'm fine. Let's move quickly." We need to make sure she doesn't suspect anything. The team helped Victor into a waiting vehicle hidden near the bridge. As they drove away, Marcus handed Victor a tablet displaying a live feed from the cameras hidden on Vanessa. She and Darian were still standing on the bridge, their conversation recorded in crystal-clear audio. "She really thinks she's won," Marcus said with a wry smile. Victor's lips curled into a faint smirk. "Let her celebrate. The higher she climbs, the harder she'll fall." Back at the retreat, Vanessa poured herself a glass of champagne, her hands no longer trembling. Darian sat across from her, his feet propped up on the coffee table. "To a fresh start," Vanessa said, raising her glass. Darian clinked his glass against hers. "To freedom." As they drank, Vanessa's phone buzzed with a message from one of Victor's staff members. She smirked as she read it aloud. "We can't locate Mr. Kane. Authorities are being notified." "Perfect," she said, her voice dripping with satisfaction. "Soon, the world will believe Victor Kane is gone, and everything he built will be mine." Darian chuckled. "You're unstoppable, Vanessa." She leaned back, a triumphant smile on her face. "It's not about being unstoppable. It's about being smart." And Victor never saw this coming. Miles away, in a secure location, Victor watched the live feed with Maria and Marcus. Every word Vanessa and Darian spoke was being recorded and saved as evidence. Maria shook her head in disbelief. "She really thinks she's won," Maria said. Victor's expression was cold and calculating. "She has no idea what's coming. Let her think she's in control for a little longer." Maria nodded. "When do we make our move?" Victor's gaze remained fixed on the screen. "Soon. I want her to feel the full weight of her actions first." It had been just a few days since Victor's tragic accident, and Vanessa wasted no time seizing control. She sat in Victor's expansive home office, the large mahogany desk now hers to command. The leather chair, once a symbol of Victor's power, was now occupied by Vanessa, who radiated confidence as she sifted through files and documents. Darian leaned casually against the doorframe, sipping from a glass of scotch. "You're really settling in, aren't you?" he remarked with a smirk. Vanessa glanced up, her lips curling into a satisfied smile. "Why shouldn't I? Victor built this empire, but I'm the one who will make it thrive. Besides, someone has to take charge." Darian walked over, setting his glass down on the desk. "And the will? Any word on when you'll officially get everything?" Vanessa leaned back in the chair, her fingers tapping lightly on the desk. "The lawyers are finalizing everything. Until then, I'm in control of his assets as his wife. By the time the will is sorted, everything will be tied up nicely." Darian chuckled. "You've thought of everything, haven't you?" Vanessa's smile grew sharper. "Of course. Victor may have been smart, but I'm smarter." The next day, Vanessa arrived at one of Victor's luxury properties, a sprawling penthouse overlooking the city skyline. She stepped out of a sleek black car, wearing a tailored white suit and oversized sunglasses, exuding the aura of a woman in charge. A small group of reporters and photographers had gathered outside, their cameras flashing as she strode confidently into the building. One reporter called out, "Mrs. Kane, how are you holding up after Mr. Kane's tragic accident?" Vanessa paused, lowering her sunglasses just enough to reveal her piercing gaze. "It's been difficult," she said, her voice smooth and composed. "But Victor would have wanted me to carry on his legacy. That's exactly what I intend to do." The reporters nodded sympathetically, their questions shifting to her plans for Victor's empire. Vanessa gave carefully rehearsed answers, portraying herself as a devoted widow determined to honor her late husband's memory. Inside the penthouse, Darian waited for her, lounging on a plush sofa with a glass of champagne. "How'd it go?" he asked as she entered. "Perfectly," Vanessa replied, slipping off her sunglasses and tossing them onto the coffee table. "They're eating out of my hand. Soon, they'll forget all about Victor and see me as the rightful face of this empire." Darian grinned, raising his glass. "To new beginnings." Vanessa joined him, clinking her glass against his. "To us." At Victor's company headquarters, Vanessa made a grand entrance, her presence commanding attention. Employees whispered among themselves as she walked through the halls, flanked by Darian and a small entourage of legal advisors. Inside the boardroom, Vanessa addressed the executive team. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her tone confident, "as you all know, Victor's tragic passing has left a void in this company. But I am here to ensure his vision continues." One of the executives, Mr. Hart, cleared his throat. "Mrs. Kane, with all due respect, Victor's leadership was unique. Do you believe you can handle the responsibilities he left behind?" Vanessa's smile didn't waver. "Mr. Hart, I spent years by Victor's side, observing his strategies and learning from his brilliance. I assure you, this company is in capable hands." There was a murmur of agreement among the executives, though some exchanged skeptical glances. Vanessa noticed but didn't address it. Instead, she continued outlining her plans for the company, sprinkling in just enough business jargon to sound credible. After the meeting, Darian joined her in the boardroom, his tone playful. "Impressive. I think you almost convinced them." Vanessa shot him a sharp look. "They don't need to be convinced. They just need to obey." Vanessa began hosting lavish parties at Victor's properties, inviting influential socialites, business leaders, and media personalities. She wanted the world to see her as the new face of wealth and power. At one such event, held in Victor's mansion, Vanessa stood at the center of the grand ballroom, a glass of champagne in hand. Dressed in an exquisite black gown adorned with diamonds, she was the epitome of elegance. Darian approached her, whispering in her ear, "You're stealing the show." Vanessa laughed lightly. "As I should. This is my kingdom now." The guests mingled around her, offering condolences for Victor's death while congratulating her on her poised leadership. Vanessa basked in the attention, unaware that every word, every gesture, was being monitored. In a secure location miles away, Victor sat in a dimly lit room, watching live feeds on a large monitor. Each screen displayed footage of Vanessa's actions, from her interactions with Darian to her speeches at the company and even the parties at the mansion. Maria sat beside him, taking detailed notes. "She's not wasting any time," Maria remarked, her voice tinged with disgust. "She's already positioning herself as the new leader of your empire." Victor nodded, his expression cold and calculating. "Good. The more she believes she's won, the more reckless she'll become. That's when we'll strike." Marcus entered the room, holding a tablet. "We've traced all her recent transactions and communications. She's been transferring funds into a private account, likely in Damien's name." Victor's lips curled into a faint smile. "Perfect. Keep documenting everything. When the time comes, I want her entire house of cards to collapse." Maria glanced at Victor, her voice softer. "How do you feel about all this, Mr. Kane? Watching her destroy everything you built?" Victor's eyes hardened. "She's not destroying it. She's handing me the evidence I need to destroy her." Over the following weeks, Victor's team continued to gather evidence. They intercepted emails, recorded phone calls, and monitored Vanessa's meetings with Darian. Every detail was meticulously documented, building an airtight case against her. One evening, Maria approached Victor with a file in hand. "This just came in," she said. "A recorded phone call between Vanessa and Darian. You'll want to hear this." Victor took the tablet and pressed play. Vanessa's voice came through, confident and smug. "Once the will is finalized, we'll have everything we need. The company, the properties. It'll all be ours." Damien's voice replied, "And what about the people asking questions? They'll get suspicious eventually." Vanessa laughed. "Let them. By the time they figure anything out, it'll be too late." Victor set the tablet down, his expression unreadable. "She's digging her own grave." Maria nodded. "And you're holding the shovel." Victor leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. The pieces were falling into place. All he had to do was wait for the right moment to reveal the truth, and take back everything that was his. Vanessa sat in her lavish living room, sipping champagne and flipping through legal documents related to Victor's estate. She felt unstoppable, her plans falling into place perfectly. But her calm was shattered when her lawyer, Jonathan, called her with urgent news. "Vanessa, we've got a problem," Jonathan said, his tone sharp. "What kind of problem?" Vanessa replied, irritation creeping into her voice. Authorities have started looking into Victor's estate. They've received an anonymous tip about discrepancies in your claims and the timeline of events surrounding his accident. Vanessa froze for a moment before regaining her composure. Discrepancies? That's absurd. Everything is in order. Jonathan sighed. I've reviewed the documents myself, and while they seem legitimate, someone has raised enough suspicion to warrant an investigation. If they dig too deep. Vanessa cut him off, her voice cold. Handle it, Jonathan. Do whatever it takes to make this go away. Jonathan hesitated. Vanessa, this isn't just a small matter. If they find anything, then make sure they don't, she snapped. You're being paid well for this. Fix it. A few days later, Vanessa met with a high-ranking official from the investigation team in a secluded restaurant. She leaned across the table, her tone sweet but firm. Surely, this is all a misunderstanding, she said, sliding an envelope stuffed with cash across the table. I'm a grieving widow, and these accusations are only adding to my pain. The official eyed the envelope, his expression unreadable. Grieving or not, Mrs. Kane, these are serious allegations. Vanessa smiled faintly. And I'm sure a capable man like you can see through baseless accusations. This, she tapped the envelope, is a token of my appreciation for your understanding. The official hesitated before taking the envelope, nodding curtly. I'll see what I can do. Vanessa leaned back, satisfied. Thank you. I knew you'd do the right thing. But as the official left, Vanessa's mind raced. She knew bribery could only hold off the authorities for so long. Whoever had tipped them off wasn't going to stop, and that thought unsettled her. That night, Vanessa returned home to find a single white envelope waiting on her desk. Frowning, she opened it to find a typed note. Did you really think it would be that easy? Her heart skipped a beat as she reread the words. She quickly checked the locks on the doors and windows, her paranoia growing. Damian, she called out, her voice shaky. When he entered, she held up the note. Did you leave this? Damian frowned. What is it? She handed him the note, watching his reaction closely. Someone left this here. It's a warning. Damian's brow furrowed. Oh. We've covered our tracks. Vanessa shook her head, pacing the room. What if it's Victor? What if he's alive? Damian scoffed. Come on, Vanessa. You saw him go over the bridge. Did I? She snapped. We didn't stick around long enough to know for sure. Damian tried to calm her down. It's probably someone trying to scare you. Don't let them get in your head. But Vanessa couldn't shake the feeling of unease. Over the next few days, cryptic messages continued to appear. A text on her phone read, "You won't get away with it." A voicemail left in Victor's voice said, "See you soon, Vanessa." Vanessa's paranoia deepened. She hired additional security for the house and instructed Damian to be extra cautious. But the psychological strain was beginning to show. Her once confident demeanor was unraveling. The day of the court hearing arrived. Vanessa, dressed in a sleek black suit, walked confidently into the packed courtroom. Photographers snapped photos as she made her way to her seat, her lawyer Jonathan by her side. The judge entered, and the room fell silent. The proceedings began, with Jonathan presenting Vanessa as the rightful heir to Victor's assets. She maintained a calm facade, though inside, her nerves were fraying. As Victor Kane's widow, Jonathan declared, Mrs. Kane has the legal right to inherit his estate as per the terms outlined in his will. The judge nodded, reviewing the documents. Is there anyone here to contest these claims? A brief silence filled the room. Vanessa smirked, confident that no one would speak up. Then, the doors at the back of the courtroom creaked open. Gasps rippled through the room as Victor Kane, very much alive, wheeled himself into the courtroom. His presence was commanding, his expression calm but resolute. Vanessa's face turned ghostly pale. "No, this isn't possible," she whispered. Victor's voice rang out, steady and cold. "Oh, but it is, Vanessa." Victor moved to the front of the courtroom, flanked by Maria and Marcus. "Your Honor," he began, "I am Victor Kane, and I am here to contest my wife's claims. She has been plotting to murder me and steal my fortune." The judge leaned forward, his expression stern. "Mr. Kane, these are serious accusations. Do you have proof?" Victor nodded. "I have irrefutable evidence." He gestured to Marcus, who handed a USB drive to the bailiff. The bailiff inserted it into a computer, and a large screen lit up. The first video showed Vanessa and Darian on the bridge, their voices clear. Vanessa's voice was chilling. "It's done. He's gone. Soon, everything he built will be mine." Gasps filled the courtroom as the video continued, showing Vanessa pushing Victor's wheelchair over the edge. Victor spoke again, his tone sharp. "I survived because I anticipated her betrayal and staged my own death. What you just saw was part of her plan to murder me." Next came audio recordings of Vanessa's calls with Darian. Her words were damning. "Once the will is finalized, we'll have everything. No one will ever know the truth." Finally, Marcus presented financial records showing Vanessa's unauthorized transfers of Victor's funds to an offshore account. "She was stealing from me even before the accident," Victor said. Vanessa's lawyer, Jonathan, slumped in his seat, speechless. Darian sat frozen, unable to meet Vanessa's eyes. Vanessa stood, her voice trembling. This is a setup. You can't believe this." Victor's gaze was icy. "The truth always comes out, Vanessa. And now, so will justice." The judge banged his gavel. "This evidence is overwhelming. Mrs. Kane, you are hereby ordered to remain in custody while these charges are investigated." Vanessa's facade finally cracked. "Victor, please," she begged, her voice desperate. "I made a mistake. Victor cut her off, his voice firm. "Your mistake was underestimating me. Now, you'll face the consequences." The courtroom buzzed with murmurs as Victor Kane's reveal ended with Vanessa being escorted out in handcuffs. Darian, pale and stunned, was taken into custody moments later. The media frenzy outside the courthouse erupted as reporters scrambled to capture every detail of the scandal. Within hours, the story hit headlines around the world. Television screens lit up in homes, offices, and public spaces with the shocking revelation. Victor Kane, presumed dead, exposes wife Vanessa Kane's chilling plot to steal his fortune. Billionaire's dramatic courtroom entry goes viral. Watch the moment he reveals his survival. Clips from the courtroom circulated online, showing Victor's calm entrance and the devastating evidence he presented. The video of Vanessa pushing Victor's wheelchair off the bridge became the centerpiece of every broadcast. Social media exploded with outrage. How can someone be this heartless? Vanessa deserves everything coming to her. Victor Kane is a genius. He played her at her own game. Greed knows no bounds. Justice for Victor. Memes of Vanessa's shocked expression and the moment Victor declared, "The truth always comes out," spread like wildfire. In her holding cell, Vanessa sat on a cold metal bench, her once perfect appearance disheveled. Her sleek black suit was wrinkled, and her hair was unkempt. She stared at the wall, her mind replaying the courtroom scene over and over. The jeers from the crowd outside echoed faintly, a reminder of how far she had fallen. A guard opened the cell door, gesturing for Vanessa to follow. She was led into a small room where her lawyer, Jonathan, sat waiting. His expression was a mixture of frustration and defeat. "What do you want me to do now?" Jonathan asked, barely hiding his anger. "The evidence against you is overwhelming. They have recordings, financial transactions, and video proof. There's no defense." Vanessa slumped in her chair, her voice trembling. "Can't we argue that it was a mistake? A moment of weakness?" Jonathan let out a bitter laugh. "A mistake? You plotted with Darian, attempted to murder your husband, and stole millions. That's not a moment of weakness, Vanessa. That's premeditated greed." Tears filled Vanessa's eyes. "Then fix it. That's what I pay you for." Jonathan shook his head. "Not anymore. Victor has frozen all your accounts. You have no money to pay for anything, including me. This is the end of the road, Vanessa. Vanessa stared at him, horror dawning on her. He froze my accounts. Jonathan nodded. Every penny. And it's all legal because it was stolen. As Jonathan left the room, Vanessa sat in silence, her mind racing. For the first time, she realized just how alone she truly was. Darian sat in a separate interrogation room, his arrogance fading quickly under the weight of the evidence against him. A detective leaned across the table, his tone sharp. Damian Michaels, you've been implicated as an accomplice in a conspiracy to commit murder and fraud. Do you have anything to say for yourself? Damian scoffed, attempting to regain some composure. This wasn't my idea. It was Vanessa's. She planned everything. The detective raised an eyebrow. So you're saying you were just an innocent bystander? I didn't think it would go this far, Damian stammered. I didn't push him. That was all Vanessa. The detective smirked. We have recordings of you agreeing to the plan. You're just as guilty. Damian slumped back in his chair, his confidence shattered. Fine. What do you want from me? Testify against Vanessa, the detective said. Give us everything. Damian hesitated, knowing Vanessa would never forgive him. But faced with no other option, he nodded. Fine. I'll talk. Back at his estate, Victor sat in his study, watching the news unfold. Maria and Marcus stood nearby, both impressed by how thoroughly Victor had dismantled Vanessa's schemes. It's all over the news, Maria said, handing Victor a tablet displaying headlines. The public is calling Vanessa the greediest widow. Victor's lips curled into a faint smile. She wanted to be the face of my empire. Now she's the face of betrayal. Marcus stepped forward, holding a report. We've frozen every account linked to Vanessa and Damian. She's penniless, and all funds have been returned to your control. Victor nodded. Good. I want to make sure every cent stolen is accounted for. No one should profit from betrayal. Maria hesitated before speaking. Do you feel vindicated, sir? Victor leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. Justice isn't about how I feel. It's about ensuring people like Vanessa face the consequences of their actions. She thought she could take everything from me. Now she has nothing. The next day, Vanessa's face was plastered across every major news outlet. Talk shows debated her motives, social media users dissected her actions, and public opinion was merciless. On a morning talk show, a legal analyst commented, Vanessa Kane's story is a textbook example of greed and betrayal. She underestimated Victor Kane, and now she's paying the price. Another panelist added, this is what happens when you prioritize money over morality. She's not just losing her freedom, she's lost her reputation forever. In the quiet of his home, Victor sat by the window, gazing out at the sprawling gardens. Maria approached him with a cup of tea. You've reclaimed everything, she said softly. What's next? Victor took a sip, his voice calm. Rebuilding. Strengthening. This experience reminded me that no matter how careful you are, there will always be those who try to take advantage. But it also reminded me of the importance of resilience. Maria smiled. You've shown the world that no one can outsmart Victor Kane. Victor chuckled lightly. It wasn't about outsmarting her, Maria. It was about being patient enough to let her outsmart herself. In her prison cell, Vanessa stared at the small, bare room that had become her reality. Gone were the luxury and adoration she had once enjoyed. The world she had dreamed of controlling now mocked her from a distance. A guard approached, sliding a tray of food through the slot. You've got fans out there, he said sarcastically, gesturing toward the news playing on a small television in the hallway. Vanessa's face filled the screen, the caption reading, From Glamour to Guilt, The Downfall of Vanessa Kane. Vanessa turned away, tears streaming down her face. She had lost everything. Money, freedom, and the respect of the world. And she had no one to blame but herself. Victor Kane sat at the head of the conference table in his company's boardroom, his presence commanding respect from everyone in the room. The executives, some of whom had doubted his ability to recover after the scandal, now looked at him with renewed admiration. Ladies and gentlemen, Victor began, his voice steady and authoritative, This company has weathered storms before, but this past ordeal was different. It wasn't just a test of our business acumen, it was a test of character. The room fell silent as Victor continued. Vanessa Kane's betrayal may have shaken us, but it also taught us valuable lessons. From now on, we will not only focus on profitability but also on integrity. This is our opportunity to rebuild, stronger and more transparent than ever. One of the executives, Mr. Hart, spoke up. Mr. Kane, your resilience through all of this has been inspiring. But what's your vision for moving forward? Victor leaned forward, his gaze piercing. We will use this scandal to advocate for change. I've already begun working with legal experts to propose reforms protecting vulnerable spouses from predatory behavior. This isn't just about me, it's about ensuring no one else goes through what I endured. The executives exchanged nods of approval, their respect for Victor deepening. 2 weeks later, Victor stood at a podium in a packed conference hall. The event had been organized to launch his new initiative, Trust Protect. The initiative aimed to advocate for legal reforms that safeguarded individuals from deceitful partners seeking to exploit their wealth. Cameras flashed as Victor began his speech. Good evening. Many of you know my story, a story of betrayal, deception, and resilience. But tonight isn't about me. It's about the countless individuals who may not have the resources or support I had to fight back. He paused, letting his words sink in. Trust Protect will focus on strengthening laws around prenuptial agreements, financial transparency, and accountability for predatory behavior. Together, we can ensure that justice prevails for everyone, regardless of their circumstances. The audience erupted into applause. Reporters jotted down notes as Victor answered questions from the press, his calm demeanor inspiring confidence. Later, backstage, Maria approached him, holding a folder of documents. Victor, that was incredible. The support for this initiative is already pouring in. Victor smiled faintly. This isn't just about fixing what happened to me, Maria. It's about creating a legacy of fairness and protection. Maria nodded. You're not just rebuilding your empire, you're setting a new standard. One quiet evening, Victor sat in his study, the warm glow of a fireplace casting flickering shadows on the walls. Maria entered, carrying 2 cups of tea. She set one down beside him and took a seat across from him. You've done so much in the past few months, Maria said. The company, the legal reforms. It's remarkable. But how are you feeling? Victor looked at her, his expression thoughtful. For a long time, I felt foolish. I questioned how I could have been deceived so thoroughly. Vanessa was a master manipulator, but I allowed myself to ignore the signs. Maria reached out, placing a hand on his. You trusted her because you wanted to believe in love. That's not a weakness, Victor. It's human. Victor's lips curved into a faint smile. Perhaps. But I've come to realize that forgiveness isn't just about others, it's about ourselves. I need to forgive myself for falling for her lies, for letting my guard down. Maria squeezed his hand gently. You're stronger now because of it. And you have people who truly care about you. Victor nodded. I do. And I'm grateful for that. The following week, Victor hosted a small dinner at his estate. Unlike the grand parties Vanessa used to plan, this gathering was intimate, attended only by close friends and loyal allies like Maria, Marcus, and a few trusted colleagues. As they enjoyed the meal, Maria raised her glass for a toast. To Victor Kane, a man who turned betrayal into strength and pain into purpose. We're proud to stand by you. The group clinked glasses, and Victor felt a warmth he hadn't experienced in years. This wasn't about wealth or power, it was about genuine connections. After dinner, Maria lingered as the other guests departed. She walked with Victor through the estate's gardens, the night air cool and refreshing. You've come a long way, Victor, she said softly. Do you feel like you've found peace? Victor looked up at the stars, his expression serene. I'm getting there. I've learned that life isn't about avoiding pain, it's about how we rise from it. Vanessa may have tried to destroy me, but in the end, she only made me stronger. Maria smiled. You're a remarkable man, Victor. Don't ever forget that. Victor turned to her, his eyes filled with gratitude. And you're a remarkable friend, Maria. I couldn't have done this without you. In the months that followed, Victor continued to rebuild his empire while dedicating more time to his advocacy work. Trust Protect gained national attention, and Victor was invited to speak at legal and business forums across the country. One day, Maria walked into his office with a newspaper. "You've made the front page again," she said with a grin, handing him the paper. The headline read, "Victor Kane, from scandal to symbol of justice." Victor chuckled lightly. "It's strange how life works, isn't it?" What seemed like the end turned out to be a new beginning. Maria nodded. "You've turned your pain into something meaningful, Victor. That's a legacy no one can take from you." Victor leaned back in his chair, a sense of peace washing over him. He had reclaimed his life, rebuilt his trust in himself and others, and created a legacy of resilience and justice. The betrayal that once threatened to break him had instead become the foundation of his strength. Vanessa sat alone in her small prison cell, the once pristine woman now a shadow of her former self. Her orange jumpsuit hung loosely on her frame, her hair was unkempt, and her eyes reflected the weight of her downfall. The luxury she had once flaunted was now a distant memory, replaced by cold concrete walls and a narrow cot. She stared at a small, tattered photo of herself and Darian taken during one of their lavish escapades. The corners of her mouth twitched with bitterness. Darian had promised to stand by her, but his words were as hollow as her plans had been. Weeks earlier, Vanessa had called Darian from the prison's payphone, desperate for his support. She dialed his number, her fingers trembling slightly, and waited for him to answer. "Hello." Darian's voice came through, casual and indifferent. "Darian, it's me," Vanessa said, her voice shaking. "I need you. Please, I can't get through this alone." There was a long pause on the other end. Finally, Darian sighed. "Vanessa, I can't help you. You know that." "What are you talking about?" Vanessa snapped, her voice rising. "We were in this together. You promised." "I didn't sign up for this, Vanessa," Darian interrupted coldly. "You're the one who pushed him off the bridge. You're the one who took it too far." Vanessa's grip tightened on the phone. "You coward. You were happy to spend the money, happy to help me plan, and now you're abandoning me." Darian chuckled dryly. "I'm not going down with you. Good luck, Vanessa. You're on your own." The line went dead. Vanessa stared at the receiver, her breath shallow. For the first time, she realized she truly had no one left. Back in her cell, Vanessa overheard two guards talking as they passed by. "Did you see the latest news about Victor Kane?" one of them said. "The guy's unstoppable. He's even starting treatments to walk again." "Yeah," the other guard replied. "Meanwhile, she's in here rotting. Serves her right." Their laughter echoed down the hallway, cutting through Vanessa's fragile composure. She clenched her fists, her nails digging into her palms. The world had moved on without her, and her name had become synonymous with betrayal. During her daily hour in the yard, she tried to mingle with other inmates, but they avoided her like the plague. Whispers followed her wherever she went. "That's the one who tried to kill her billionaire husband. Bet she thought she'd be living in luxury forever. She deserves every second of this." Vanessa's attempts to assert herself were met with scorn and mockery. "Guess your charm doesn't work in here," one inmate sneered as Vanessa walked away, her head low. Late one night, Vanessa lay awake, staring at the ceiling. For the first time, she allowed herself to confront the truth of her actions. She whispered into the darkness, her voice breaking. "How did it come to this? I had everything. And I ruined it." Her mind replayed the moments leading up to her downfall, her greed, her manipulations, and her blind ambition. The life she had once envied was now a source of deep regret. For all her cunning, she had underestimated the strength and resilience of the man she had tried to destroy. Vanessa closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. "I destroyed myself," she admitted quietly. "Victor didn't do this. I did." Months later, Victor stood at the edge of a stage, leaning on a sleek, modern walker. The experimental treatments he had undergone were showing progress, and for the first time in years, he could take tentative steps. The audience, gathered for a global summit on resilience and justice, erupted into applause as Victor took the stage. Maria, standing off to the side, watched with pride. She had been there through the darkest moments and now witnessed Victor's triumph. Victor approached the podium, gripping it for support. He gazed out at the crowd, his expression calm but powerful. "Good evening," he began, his voice steady. "Tonight, I stand before you not just as a survivor but as a testament to the power of resilience and vigilance." The audience leaned in, hanging on his every word. "Betrayal is a wound that cuts deep," Victor continued. "But it is not the betrayal of others that defines us, it is how we choose to rise above it. For a time, I blamed myself for trusting someone who didn't deserve it. But I've learned that trust is not a weakness. It's a strength. And when that trust is broken, it is not the end, it is the beginning of a new journey." The crowd erupted into applause again, but Victor held up a hand to quiet them. "I used to think success was measured by wealth and power," he said. "But now I understand it's measured by the lives we touch, the justice we fight for, and the legacy we leave behind. My story isn't unique. There are countless others who have been betrayed, manipulated, and hurt. And to them, I say, stand tall. Fight back. Rebuild." Maria wiped a tear from her eye as Victor concluded. "We cannot always prevent betrayal, but we can choose how we respond to it. I chose to respond with strength, with purpose, and with the unwavering belief that justice always prevails." The audience rose to their feet, the applause thunderous. Victor smiled faintly, his heart filled with pride and closure. After the summit, Maria joined Victor backstage. "That was incredible," she said, handing him a bottle of water. "You've inspired so many people tonight." Victor took a sip, his expression thoughtful. "It wasn't just for them, Maria. It was for me, too. Speaking those words reminded me how far I've come, and how much further I can go." Maria nodded. "You're stronger now than ever, Victor. And the world knows it." Victor leaned on his walker, gazing out at the crowd dispersing. "Vanessa thought she could take everything from me. But in the end, she gave me something far more valuable: clarity." Maria smiled. "So what's next for Victor Kane?" Victor turned to her, his eyes shining with determination. "Rebuilding, innovating, and continuing to fight for what's right. This isn't the end of my story. It's just the beginning." Meanwhile, in her cell, Vanessa stared at the small television mounted in the corner. It was broadcasting Victor's speech, his powerful words echoing in the silence of her confinement. She watched him take those determined steps onto the stage, a symbol of resilience and justice. Tears welled in her eyes as she whispered, "I underestimated you, Victor. I thought I was strong, but you were stronger." The guards called for lights out, plunging the room into darkness. Vanessa lay down on her cot, the flickering images of Victor's triumph still vivid in her mind. For the first time, she accepted that her greed and betrayal had not just ruined her life, they had destroyed the very thing she thought she could control. And in the darkness of her cell, Vanessa was left alone with her regret. "I'm glad you made it to the end. I hope you enjoyed the story. Please go ahead and generously hit that like button and subscribe for more captivating tales like this. We'd love to hear from you. What lessons have you learned from this story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next story.